There's an expression that I used to use on Mike and Mike sometimes that I like, which is that reason is the first casualty of emotion. When you feel very emotionally about any subject, it becomes more and more difficult to be reasonable when you talk about it, which is one of the reasons why I think I'm a good person to talk about this Caitlin Clark thing, because I don't have a horse in the race, if you will. I don't have a vested interest. I'm not trying to, as many people out there seem to be, from what I can tell on social media and whatnot, I'm not trying to turn this into a cause so that I can somehow increase my own lot in life. I see the situation for what it is, which is a bordering on unprecedented set of circumstances in a team sport. And it is okay, even though you are a talk show host, to sometimes say, I see both sides. So on the Caitlin Clark thing, I see both sides. One of the reasons that leagues like the WNBA have their players play in the Olympics, particularly in a sport like the WNBA where they actually have to pause their season, right? Their season is going on. For anyone who doesn't know this, their season began when it normally does. They are then jamming at all of their games into the period before and after the Olympics without elongating their schedule. They're playing the same number of games in about 30 fewer days. So if you feel like, if you're one who's relatively new to watching the WNBA, as I fully acknowledge I am, and you're thinking, wow, Caitlin Clark plays every other day, you're right. And it normally wouldn't be this way. Why is the WNBA willing to completely change around its calendar and its schedule? Because the growth opportunity that comes from having your stars compete in the Olympics on the biggest international sporting stage in the world with an enormous television audience everywhere, but in particular in this country of people who are typically not hardcore sports fans. A lot of people who watch the Olympics, let me say that differently, a lot of hardcore sports fans don't watch the Olympics because the coverage of it tends to be about so many things beyond the sports. The people who are watching the Olympics are a lot of people who might be very interested in Caitlin Clark and might not be that interested in basketball. And so if you have Caitlin Clark on that team and all of a sudden they're watching, they might all of a sudden become big fans of Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu and the other best players in the league right now, of which she candidly at this particular moment is not. So that would be the argument for putting her on the team. And it's a perfectly valid one. The team is going to win anyway. They're going to win the gold regardless of who the 12th person on this team is. Now, Christine Brennan, whom I have enormous respect for and whose history of covering international sports and women's sports, the Venn diagram of those two things is probably as extensive as that of any other journalist that ever lived, said that one of the things that USA Basketball may have been taking into account would be the blowback they would have received if she wasn't playing much. If she's on this team and she's barely playing, on some level, while these games are going on, that might be worse than her not being on the team at all, which is to say, in the game in which she played last night, her team was getting blown out. She didn't play the entire fourth quarter, and the arena was chanting, "We want Caitlin." That's probably not a great scenario. But now spin it to the other side. Spin it to where they are playing her ahead of other definitively better, more qualified in this moment players. Is that really best? Is it better for her if she's on this team for no reason other than the marketing? Is that really the best thing for her? Because if you think if there are people out there who have it in for her right now, and I think it's obvious there are some who do, I don't know. I cannot begin to calculate the percentage. How many? How bad is it? I don't know. I don't know any of that. But what I do know is it is evident there are at least some. Imagine if all of a sudden she is placed on this team ahead of more deserving people and is getting minutes ahead of better players. I don't know that that's better either. So I don't know that this wasn't in every other way the best decision, the right decision, beyond the most obvious reason, which is if she takes a spot ahead of someone else, that is a spot that someone has worked her entire life for the honor, the opportunity, the thrill, the dream of representing your country in the Olympic Games, wearing the letters USA on your jersey, all of that. So those are all the things that go on the side of you're better off not putting her on the team if she definitively isn't one of the 12 best players, which I think pretty much everyone acknowledges she is not. The other side of it is, if you put her on the team and you play her, do a lot more people watch? And is there some opportunity to grow your game based on that? The obvious answers to those are yes. So what I'm saying is, as I think I just did, I can make an argument on either side of this that you want. Which side do you buy, Hembo?
This is a massive mistake to exclude Caitlin Clark from the Team USA roster. Massive. We're acting as if putting her on the team would be a patronizing act. Who are we kidding? I mean, she ranks in the top 5 in the WNBA right now in meaningful stats, leaving aside the marketing of it. This is not putting Tim Tebow on your team, okay? This is not Jeremy Lin. This is a top 20 to 25 player in the world right now who is struggling in some sense early in her career, but is at least still representing herself and her team effectively. And if we're to be honest, Team USA is not going to lose because she's on the team, okay? They've won 55 straight games. The last time they lost, I was 2. All right, I'm 34 now. They're not going to lose any game because Caitlin Clark's on the team. So if we're going to put the 12 best players on, and that's inarguable, I'm good with it. But you know what? That's not really what they did either. They put a 42-year-old Diana Taurasi on, who's inarguably not a top 12 player in the country. They also put Chelsea Gray on, who's been hurt and isn't playing at all this season. We've also seen, historically, them put on several rookies, so it's not as if that would be unprecedented. So it's not obvious to me what the plan was here. To me, it's pretty clear. There's some resentment and there's some jealousy, and you can hide behind, she's not a top 12 player. The problem is, they didn't really use that standard for making the rest of the team.
The resentment and jealousy comes from who?
From a variety of people.
Are any of them the people who are making this decision?
I don't know, but I'm sure that the people making these decisions are being influenced and pressured by people that do feel that resentment, that jealousy, which is a vile thing to feel.
Okay, let's say you're right.
Okay.
I don't know you're right.
Neither do I. I'm just hypothesizing.
Let's live in a world where you're right. Let's live in a world where there is a great deal of jealousy and resentment towards Caitlin Clark on the part of the other players who have been there and have built this thing into whatever it was, and now resent the idea that she comes right in and becomes immediately the unquestioned face of the league, which she is. Because what I'm hearing a lot of people say is they should be grateful. She's bringing all this attention, she's bringing all this additional money, and that will eventually rise. All of them will benefit from that. And all that is inarguably true. But the closest thing I can think of to this would be when Tiger Woods first burst onto the scene in golf. Now, that isn't a team sport, but there's never been a player who came into any team sport in my lifetime that has had this kind of impact.
Gretzky?
Even maybe that's the closest thing to it, but the NHL was already a big, major, thriving league, right? I mean, the NHL may have gone from, I don't even know how to put numbers on this, went from a 7 to a 9. The WNBA went from a 2 to a 9.
All I'm saying is he came into the league and immediately won the MVP and was the face of it.
But we're not talking about who's the best player. That happened because he was the best player. Caitlin Clark was this before her first game.
But Gretzky was anointed as well.
I understand.
If we're just looking for context, that's probably the closest thing that we have for a team sport.
You are right. And that's exactly right. And I'll be honest with you, that was 1977.
It was 80. Yeah, 1980 was his first year in the NHL.
I don't remember how much. I was 12, so I don't have a sense of how much, if any, resentment there was, at that time by the active players toward him. What I do remember is that when Tiger Woods burst onto the scene and suddenly all of the attention was on him, there are to this day people who cover the sport who will write columns and send out tweets saying, why do they keep showing every shot Tiger takes when he's not in contention? I want to see these leaders. And the obvious answer is the same reason that you would put Caitlin Clark on the Olympic team, because people want to see Tiger Woods, whether he's in contention or not, because Tiger Woods is overwhelmingly the biggest star in all of this. This is a sport with a lot of great golfers and one celebrity. And that's what the WNBA is. The WNBA is a sport filled with great players, many of them, at least at this moment, better than Caitlin Clark. But she's a celebrity in a way that maybe no one else is. Now, maybe Angel Reese would qualify in that category now, and maybe a handful of others. And I think the goal here, the vision here, is that 5 years from now, a lot of the WNBA players are celebrities in the way NBA and NFL and Major League Baseball players are. That, I think, is where we're all going. And so it's easy for someone to sit back and say they should appreciate that Caitlin Clark may get you there, but resentment, jealousy, that kind of thing, those are normal human emotions. And when someone is saying to you, man, everything, this is all about her. You should only care about her. You should be so grateful. You should get down on your knees and thank God that she has come along into your league, which is essentially the message that is being sent to a lot of people. It's not that hard for me to see where some people will feel resentment toward that.
It's also not hard for me as a data person to look at the top rated college basketball games of the last 30 years, and each of the top 4 are Iowa games.
But no one's arguing with you. I mean, no one's debating that. No one with a shred of sense.
I'm saying facts. Other people are using emotion. You can use whatever you want. Twice as many people would watch the Olympics if Caitlin Clark was on the team. Twice as many.
And playing.
She would be playing representatively. They're going to win every game by 30 points. Every single game they will win by 30 points. They last lost in 1992.
Right. I get that. And they remain that much better than everybody else. I mean,
Correct.
So that's what, yeah. So maybe they would.